وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر وعبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Good morning. We are doing the program differently today. We will be discussing 3 different issues with 3 separate and distinguished guests. First, the conflict in Libya. Second, the Ethiopian-Egyptian dam dispute. And last, the Israeli plans to annex West Bank settlements. Our first guest to talk about Libya is Professor Ali Abdulatif Ahmida, the founding chair of the Department of Political Science at the University of New England. Professor Ahmida, welcome to the show, and I want to start with the top question, with the most important question about Libya. What is the future of the conflict in Libya?
Good morning to you and to your listeners. It's a pleasure to be with you. The future of the Libyan conflict is really contingent. It really depends whether the factors that feeds and produces and make this conflict continues will change or stay the same. So if the foreign intervention in the Libyan conflict will continue with the various actors, regional and international, trying to really support this faction or the other faction will continue. That means there is no compromise, internationally, and that will continue. If the leadership inside the country continues to see the other as an enemy and not to sit down and make compromises for the sake of everybody and continue that way of thinking, then I don't see an end to the conflict. But any change of the 2 factors might really lead to enabling Libyan public opinion, which is being kind of sidelined, ignored, silenced for this long because of the militarization and the violence that has continued. So in that sense, it depends whether this situation, with the actors who are controlling the situation inside the country and also feeding in the conflict. So unfortunately, it looks very grim right now, but it's not inevitable.
Now, you're talking about the actors. What about the Libyan man of the street? How does the regular man on the street see the future?
Well, that's a very good question to raise now. I think the man in the street is concerned about basic things. I asked a very dear friend of my late father, and I said, what are the major concerns? The same question you ask me now. And he said, son, we are concerned about two things: security and bread. Security and bread, which is very, very rational in a situation where we are really dealing with conflict and civil war. So I think however, if you push this argument a little bit more, then what you will see is the fact that Libyan people, ordinary people, middle class, upper class, working class, rural people, urban people, are overwhelmed because you have over 20 million pieces of weapons in Libya, and you have groups that are against the rebuilding, reorganizing of the army, the police force, and the security apparatus. So therefore, I think the ordinary people are really at the mercy of this violence and conflict. And I think the tragedy of the Libyan conflict, which is against all of the the theories and the analysis and the assumptions, is that Libyan people are tribal. Libyan people are really not unified. Libyan people are, there is no even Libya, let's partition Libya. All of that really irresponsible and colonial way of talking about the public opinion are really misleading, because we have to remember, Mr. Atef, the Libyan people voted 3 times.
Yes, go ahead.
And they were men, women, elderly, adults, and they had a very, very strong voice. But their voices and their vote has been, hijacked by what I call failed leadership. And by that, I think the conflict in Libya is not because of tribalism. It's not because of regionalism. None of that are really the primary factors behind the conflict. The conflict is fed and made, big because the leadership after 2011 failed to think about what happened after Gaddafi's fall. The second, I think it's also very important, they failed to say, let's agree on transition, rule of law, basic human needs that Libyan people were thinking it might be what's needed to complete what was missing under Gaddafi's dictatorship. On the other hand, there is a big lie. The NATO intervention destroyed the state, but also for different agendas. And after that, it refused and allowed all kind of extremist foreign interventions, different agendas of various types, to really intervene in Libya and really capture and take the transition away from the Libyan people for maybe the normal way of a transition from a state of uprising, conflict, and state building. I think this is what we need to recognize. Any other idea to deflect the analysis is really misleading and really not true, because what we have in Libya is a failed transition, foreign intervention, and really opportunistic and naive leadership that did not really pay attention to the outside forces' agendas for a country, Arab country like Libya.
Now, you talked about security and bread. I want to focus on bread. How
Yes.
stable is the bread, the living conditions for the ordinary Libyan citizen amid that chaos?
Yes. Well, Brother Atef, this is an excellent question. I ask, friends, I ask family members, I have sisters and brothers and nephews and nieces and people all over the country the same question: how did you survive? And of course, they say we manage. We borrow from each other. We sell some of our precious things. We lean on each other. We cooperate, and we struggle. Sometimes we don't have medicine. We don't have electricity for 10 hours or more. We don't have service for our communication. We sometimes don't have, salaries will be late, 2, 3, and 4 months sometimes. And the Libyan currency is completely inflated. And so people, they tell me they struggle. Now, I think we shouldn't just stop here, Brother Atef. I think what we need to ask, how could people who are facing armed conflict, foreign intervention, illegal immigration, extremists, foreign intelligence, and a state of continuous war in many sections of the country, without police, without security, without regular salaries, without anything, they continue. I think my answer to that is that in this really grim picture, the Libyan people are resilient. There is a quiet resistance, quiet cohesiveness where people support each other and help each other. And this is really something that escaped most of the Arab and the Western commentator observers of what's going on in Libya. Now, is this going to continue forever? I don't think that's possible for any human being. But at least we need to recognize that the communities, the schools are still functioning, the businesses are still functioning, the self-support and self-help is still functioning. So Libyan society is relying on its own self-governance, which is very creative and did not happen overnight. And I think that's how it's succeeded in facing this really severe crisis, this severe insecurities and violence that really undermine one of the most interesting Arab countries with a small population, with a lot of oil, and with a tremendous location that should be a model or a place where you could really build a stable government. But as we know, nothing in this life should be taken for granted. Leaders, foreign greedy, designs all sometimes undermine the potential of a country like Libya.
What is the real American-U.S. position in Libya right now?
Oh, this is really a good question, but I'm afraid there is no clear policy toward Libya. What the Obama administration, and I'm going to be hard on the Obama administration, and the Trump administration after that, have done in Libya is shameful, because there was a country that, a state that was toppled. There was an uprising against a dictatorial, dated and aged regime, but also after the NATO intervention and the defeat of the old regime, the country was left to extremist groups, armed groups, and the United States seems to the expression is to lead from behind. They withdrew from the Libyan case. They decided it's not really their primary concern, only terrorism and also strategic concern about groups like Al-Qaeda and other affiliates are major concerns. So they left it to the Europeans who are fighting over Libya, and they tried to revive their own colonial sphere of influence and designed for oil. And unfortunately, Arab countries and Turkey also exported its concern under President Erdogan. They tried to get into Libya. So it's become really, Libya became a stage for proxy wars. And the American foreign policy is absent. Only once in a while they hide behind the UN mission to Libya. And once in a while, they support the Wifaq government, the government of National Accord in Tripoli. Other times, the president will call General Haftar in eastern Libya, and they go back and forth without a clear policy. And that vacuum is really became very, very, very bad, has bad consequences. Because I think the United States and the EU have a moral obligation toward the Libyan people. They topple a regime, and they left the Libyan people open to all kind of intervention and agendas. So I'm afraid to say, Brother Atef, that there is no clear, cohesive American policy towards Libya. Libya is regarded as a secondary issue.
Thank you, Professor Ali Abdulatif Ahmida, for the information. We wish we had more time to discuss the complex situation, but thank you for the information. When we come back after the break, we will be discussing the second topic, which is the dispute between Egypt and Ethiopia.
Life is a non-profit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
مرحبا سعيد.
اهلا علا.
ليش هالمقابله الفاتره هي؟ بيقول المثل لاقيني ولا تغديني.
يمه زعلتي، شنو رايك اذا لقيتك وايضا غديتك باحسن مطاعم ميشيغان، مطعم عشتار؟
والله فكره، افضل الاطباق والمقبلات العربيه والعراقيه واحلى ملقا.
ولا تنسين اللحوم الطازجه مباشره من ملحمه عشتار لزباين عشتار. وملحمه عشتار توفر اختيارات متنوعه من كافه انواع اللحوم وباسعار متميزه وجوده ايضا مميزه. ملحمه عشتار تقع على 36865 راين رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايت.
واكيد احلى لمه واطيب لقمه في مطعم عشتار اللي عنوانه 3625 15 مايل رود في مدينه ستيرلينغ هايت. هاتف 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
يلا علا
يلا عشتار للجوده وكرم الضيافه عنوان
مطعم عشتار.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
انت الحسن شايفك لازم بيد حلق عن
الي ساعة عم بستناك مشان نروح نتغدى بالشام.
الشام؟
ايه بالشام ومو بالشام.
شلون صارت هي؟
بدل ما نروح نتغدى بالشام
ايه
جابوا لنا الاكلات الشامية الطيبة لعنا لهم.
وشلون بقى؟
هذا مطعم دماس عم يعمل كل الاكلات الشامية الطيبة هو.
وطيبة؟
طيبة كتير.
شرفوا نتغدى سوا بمطعم دماس.
الأكل الشامي الأصيل
فقط بدمسكوزين. زوروهم على 28841 أورشيد ليك بفارمينغتون هيلز، ولطلباتكم اتصلوا على 248-987-4609. That's 248-987-4609. دمسكوزين and catering، جبنا لكم الشام لعندكم.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. Next, we move to discuss the Egyptian-Ethiopian dam dispute. Our distinguished guest to discuss the issue is Mr. Sameh Elhady, who is a human rights activist and Middle East expert. Mr. Elhady, welcome on the show. And let me start by asking you if the recent agreement mediated by South Africa means we have a breakthrough in the dispute.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Gawad, for the opportunity, and a good morning to you and the listeners of the program. The African platform always have been a good platform for Egypt until 1993, when the attempt to assassinate President Mubarak happened and took place. Since that time, Egypt turned its back to the African platform. And unfortunately, at that time, Ethiopia had been able to expand and make a better influence on the African countries and been able to put them as an ally against Egypt. What's happening recently in the negotiation is not the first breakthrough, or what it looks like to be a breakthrough. This has happened several times before, and every time we reach almost an agreement, and the last 1 mile, Ethiopian government decided to walk away and said, no, it is not enough for me, I'm not going to be able to take it, and leave. And before that, we had the same scenario almost happening here in the United States back in February, when the three parties involved, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, with the assistance of the United States Treasury Department and the International Bank, have been able to finalize an agreement. And it's only missing a signature, which is Egypt did by, initially accepted the agreement and signed it. Sudan said, I will wait until all parties sign, and Ethiopia rejected. So what's happening now is not something new, and I don't think this is going to be a change in the negotiation path between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia.
So what are the realistic options for Egypt right now?
Well, to understand what Egypt's options are, we have to go back a little bit shortly to the history. We have to go back to the 1929 agreement signed by Britain as occupational power on behalf of Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania with Egypt, which is give Egypt the veto right against any project on the Upper Nile. Ethiopia at that time, which is now she's claiming that she was not, it was not an independent country, which is not true, because Ethiopia at that time was an independent country and have full authority. And Ethiopia claimed that the agreement of 1929 and the agreement of 1959 both happened as a colony era, and it should not be recognized. So Egypt go back to those two agreements and use it as a legitimate and lawful authorization for the Egyptian government and the Sudani government to veto any project that will eliminate their share of the water from Nile. However, they also in 2015 they agreed upon the Ethiopian right of development, but on a share-fair base. We cannot take a collateral damage that will harmfully hurt Egypt and Sudan. So the Egyptian negotiation team, utilizing those three agreements, to put the Ethiopian at the corner and ask them why there is always a problem. The problem is two things. Number one, what we're going to do if we have a dry time, which is a limited, very limited time of rain. There is no supplies. Number two, what are the legal frame and the lawful frame that we can utilize if there is a struggle or a problems happen between the parties? Those are the two problems that the negotiators facing. Ethiopia don't want to sign any kind of commitment that could be used against her in the future. And Ethiopia wants to put a rule that as a country, they can utilize the Blue Nile the way they like it, when they want it, and they have no commitment whatsoever to the other two countries, Sudan and Egypt. Egypt's been able in the last 90 days to put a huge political pressure on the Ethiopian side. Number one, they get the support from the Arab League of States in a clear statement. Number two, they get the support from the United States when they signed the agreement that the United States Treasury formed with the assistance of the International Bank. Number three, they went to the Security Council to make sure that the international community faces its commitments to make and secure the peace in the African eastern side. Now, Egypt is never been used the term of war or utilizing the military power, which is we know, and everyone knows that the Egyptian military now is now ranking number 9 worldwide. But this option never been eliminated also. So the Egyptian never said that we're going to use it. However, they never indicated that they are not going to use it too. So now, if, I think this is the last chance, if the African platform fail to put the Ethiopian into the right place and make them sign a legal and a lawful frame that will guarantee the supply, the fair supply of the water for the Sudan and for the Egypt, I think Egypt will find out itself on a survival protection base. They have to strike.
Okay, I will get back to that strike in a minute, but before, I wonder if Ethiopia, given all the pressure you just talked about a minute ago, would Ethiopia defy the U.S. even though it receives about $1 billion every year in assistance from the U.S.?
Well, we understand the strong relationship that started within the President Obama administration time. We know that Ethiopia received the $1 billion a year. And also we know that the African military command of United States, it's in Kenya and in Ethiopia. And we know that there is a protocol of protection signed by President Obama that will guarantee the safety and the security of Ethiopia and Kenya. However, on the other hand, the balance and the interest of the United States utilizing Egypt as a strong ally in the Middle East will also make a very good explanation and excuse to Egypt if it's a strike against Ethiopia, because now we are not talking about economic interest, we are not talking about influence, political expansion, we are talking about survival. Nile to the Egyptians are the lifeline. Without Nile, there is no Egypt. And when it comes to surviving, anything could happen. And this is why I'm strongly thinking that we're gonna reach an agreement, and a good agreement also to Egypt and Sudan. But now, with this technique that the Ethiopians do, I don't think they are putting the Egyptian in the corner, putting their back to the wall, which is forcing them, as I mentioned again, maybe to strike them.
So you talked about two remaining differences. One is what happens during the dry season, and the second issue is legal arbitration in cases of disputes in the future. So do you think, based on those two remaining agreements, you feel optimistic that there will be an agreement soon?
I feel there is going to be an agreement soon, and Ethiopia will be eager to secure this agreement quickly, because the internals issue now is pressing on the Ethiopian government. In the United States here, 2 days ago, we saw a huge protest for more than 1,500 Ethiopian residents or citizens in the United States in Michigan, blocking the major freeway I-94 West. Why? Because they are protesting the assassination of one of the Emoro ethnicity group, singer, which happens to be a former supporter for the current Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And everyone knows that the internal side of Ethiopia is shaking now, and they are approaching election, and there is other struggles, to the point that now the Ethiopian government and the official spokesman of the Emora group accused the Egyptian government involvement in this assassination. So based on the international pressure that has been secured against them, based on the isolation that they are facing now to the international community, and based on now Sudan, their closest ally is turning their back on them, because they are also under threat, because they don't know how secure their resources, the Suez resources dam is secure behind the great dam of Ethiopia. Those three elements, and now on top of that, this internal issues is a huge pressure on them. I think they will be signing an agreement within 2 weeks, as the African platform decided.
Now, whether there is an agreement or not, do you believe that the dispute by itself is or would mean death of the Nile in the long term?
Yes. In one short word, yes.
Explain.
Because what's happening is that Ethiopia, if they've been able to get away with what they are doing now, they will be setting a new rule, which is not happening in the international community, and which is not happening before with the cross-borders rivers, and they will be utilizing a full right and a powerful of the river. Back in 1997, there is an issue happened between Czechoslovakia and Hungary. Now it's Slovakia. So they had this problem, a similar issue, on the Danube River. So the International Court utilized the 1977 International Agreement for Rivers to solve this issue based on, yes, the river is started in your land. However, because it's crossing an international borders to other countries and community, the fair utilization is demanded and must be respected. And you cannot have a full power and a free hand to utilize the river the way you like it and build any project. And I believe the project was eliminated by the International Court because the damage that it caused to Hungary. And this is a very, very famous case that's called a case of Gabitschevko and Negremus about an issue problem of the river Danube between Slovakia and Hungary.
A military confrontation between Egypt and Ethiopia, if that ever happens, what are the consequences for the two countries?
I can speak about first the Egyptian consequences. Egypt, if they strike military, they will be facing an international interest damages, because we know after the 2015 agreement between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, which is give the Ethiopian the right to build the dam, China funded the project $1 billion. The International Bank funded the project with $1 billion. Italian government funded the project, and other international financial entities have put investment into this project. So Egypt, when they strike the dam, they will be striking a part of their interest with those communities, which is going to put Egypt in a huge economic problem. However, if Egypt was able to secure a legitimate support based on the protection of the survival, and now which is Egypt now built this momentum by talking to the Security Council, talking to the Arab League of States, and even talking to the African platform, and show to the whole world that, hey, I have been trying to reach an agreement to protect my people and my survival instincts with the Ethiopian government several times. And every time we reach an agreement, they walk away. Now, no one can blame me if I strike the dam now because I exhausted all the political and peaceful solutions. From the Ethiopian side, if Egypt strike the dam utilizing their powerful military power, Ethiopia will be in very bad situation because they don't have the capacity or the capability to strike back against Egypt. This is number one. Number two, their dream of having a dam that will change the economic shape of Ethiopia will be dissolved. And it's going to take them a long time to build something like this again, which is not going to be easy. And the delusion of saying, or the claiming of saying that they're going to utilize this dam to generate electricity, it's like as we say here in the United States, it's a big BS, because they are holding 74 billion cubic meter of water to generate electricity. The only thing they need is 41 billion cubic meter to generate the water. They are looking to full control of the Blue Nile, which is the major supplier for the water of the Nile River, and they are looking to be a political influence place and center in Africa. And in the future, they want to sell the water as we are selling now and buying oil worldwide.
Now, finally, Mr. Elhady, some people are critical of Egypt, and they wonder why for so long Egypt has not utilized desalination of the Red Sea and the Mediterranean to make up for the shortage in water supplies.
Number one, this is a very expensive operation. Number two, it requires a lot of changes in the infrastructures and the society and the behavior of the society and the community in Egypt. And it's not easy. It requires a lot of money. And however, Egypt started a huge strategy since 2015 until 2025 to change the way they are generating water, and also to make sure that they have utilizing other resources. But no matter what you do, you cannot match what you are using from the Nile. Egypt is recycling the water that they use from the Nile 3 and 4 times. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's a very expensive operation, needs a lot of infrastructure, investment, changes in the behavior of the people, and it's not easy. It's going to take a long time and a huge budget which Egypt cannot afford now.
Mr. Sameh Elhady, thank you very much for the information. When we come back after the break, we will move to discuss another sensitive issue: Israeli plans to annex West Bank settlements after the break.
Thank you very much.
If halal is important to your family, you can trust that Miramar will offer not only the highest quality halal products, but the best tasting and healthiest foods that can be placed on your family table with confidence. Miramar is the first and oldest halal certified food brand in America, serving the Arab and Muslim community, and offers a wide range of halal food products. Check out Miramar's halal food selection today by visiting Miramar's exclusive distributor, Ziyad Brothers Importing at www.ziyad.com.
مركز طب رهاب للعلاج الطبيعي بإدارة الدكتور محمد فرح حسين، أخصائي العلاج الطبيعي بخبرة أكثر من 13 عاما. طب رهاب يقدم خدمات العلاج الطبيعي وإعادة التأهيل، ويضم مجموعة من أفضل أخصائي التشخيص الدقيق للحالات المرضية، مع خبرة عالية في التعامل مع الحالات التي تحتاج إلى إعادة تأهيل وعناية خاصة بعد العمليات والكسور. طب رهاب يستقبل كل الحالات المتعلقة بألم الرقبة، الظهر، المفاصل، شلل الوجه، الانزلاق الغضروفي، عرق النساء، الحوادث وإصابات العمل. خبيرات في المعالجة النسائية لخصوصيات تامة للسيدات. عندما تبحثون عن رعاية متميزة، اقصدوا توب ريهاب للعلاج الطبيعي، الواقع على 15001 ميشيغان افنيو، وللمواعيد اتصلوا على 313-846-0555. That's 846-0555.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We now finally move to discuss the Israeli plans to annex West Bank settlements, and our distinguished guest is Dan Raviv, who is a columnist for Newsday. Mr. Raviv is also a veteran reporter with CBS News and other major networks. Mr. Raviv, thank you very much for joining us. My first question is, explain to us, please, why are the Israeli plans on hold right now?
Well, good morning, Dr. Jawad, and Sabah al-Khair to you and all the listeners. It is very much on hold. You know very well that for several weeks, the thought was that on the first day of July, right, 2 days ago, there would be some announcement from the Israeli government that they will annex parts of the West Bank, the land captured in the Six-Day War back in 1967. And then the Israelis did nothing and said nothing. There's some political arguments within Israel, one party blaming the other party for a lack of agreement, but that's the bottom line. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did not reach agreement with his own government coalition about what land to take over, what land to declare, whether any troops would have to move or just a piece of paper would be issued. And in the week before, Netanyahu had consultations with the Trump administration. There were 2 envoys from the White House who went to Israel and met with Netanyahu And we've learned, though everything was kept secret, that the Americans told Netanyahu to cool it, not be in a rush. President Trump doesn't want it to happen right now. And you know how it is in the Middle East. If it doesn't happen now, maybe it will never happen.
But wouldn't that conflict with Mr. Trump's initial moves in moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and also in recognizing Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel?
Yes, again and again, Donald Trump has taken Israel's side. No question about that. People who work in the Trump administration have told me as a reporter that in 2017, Trump's first year as president, that he gave the Palestinian leadership a chance. He met with President Abbas not only here in Washington, where I am, but also in the West Bank in Bethlehem. He met Mahmoud Abbas, and apparently Trump was not impressed. Just the way Donald Trump looks at who's powerful and who makes sense to him and maybe who praises him. Either way, Trump did not like the Palestinian Authority and PLO leadership, turned against them, as you know, has cut off all U.S. aid, made the Palestinian Authority or PLO embassy close in Washington. And so he's taken Israel's side. And so when Netanyahu had a chance of winning the last election, again, Trump was sending out signals. My friend Netanyahu, in effect, saying, whatever you want, you and your right-wing ministers, you have a plan for the West Bank, I don't mind, I don't care. And then the result of the election was rather cloudy. So Netanyahu had to form a coalition with his rival, General Benny Gantz, and this seems to have confused the White House, and they're not sure whether to side with the right-wing ministers. And Trump, of course, is thinking about the election here in America, now only 4 months away, and that's why there are indications that the Trump team doesn't really want to stir up any trouble. They apparently are asking Netanyahu to hold off. And Netanyahu's right-wing ministers wanted to do it, absolutely, this week. But it's very significant that nothing happened. There's still the possibility that in the coming days that some of the largest Israeli Jewish settlements close to Jerusalem could be declared part of Israeli territory. That would be an annexation. The Israelis claim that won't affect any Palestinian people because it's already Jewish settlers who live in those areas. But I have a feeling that may not happen at all, and largely because of a red light that Trump seems to be giving.
Now, there are reports that there is a split within the Trump administration on that issue.
Yeah, I would say there's one. I would say there's one. Dr. Jawad, I would say there's one outlier, one activist within the Trump administration who is pushing for annexation, and as his belief might suggest, the more the merrier, and that is David Friedman. David Friedman is a former lawyer in New York for the Trump companies, for the real estate companies. He became the U.S. ambassador to Israel. He presided over moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So Ambassador Friedman's very proud of that, and you know he contributes money at a personal level to West Bank settlements. He's a believer in the settlements. He thinks it's a good thing that Jews live again in the West Bank as they did in biblical days. Certainly many Arabs, not just Palestinians, feel that David Friedman is not sensitive to the Palestinian cause. But there are others in the White House, like the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who wrote the peace plan, which many Palestinians consider to be an insult, because it does call for a Palestinian state, but made up of little pieces around the West Bank, spread around, not really one contiguous state. But still, Jared Kushner feels that Israel could proceed with annexing land, taking over land forever, only in the context of peace negotiations. Well, there are no peace negotiations. The peace plan isn't advancing. So Jared Kushner apparently is against Israel unilaterally taking steps, whereas Ambassador David Friedman, who frequently comes back to the White House and absolutely can talk directly to his old friend, the president, David Friedman says, it's better if the Israelis do it now, get it over with. So there is a disagreement in the Trump administration.
So I guess it would be better for Israel to do it now, because if President Trump loses the election in November, what are the chances of going ahead with the plan?
That is absolutely what the right-wing parties in Israel are saying, and they're saying it openly. They say, we hope, these are Israelis, right, on the right wing. Some of them happen to be born in America, so they have a sense for American politics. And they say that Donald Trump has been our great friend. As you've said, he's made a lot of pro-Israel moves in his 3.5 years as president. So they want Trump to win, but they warn maybe Trump won't win. So Israel should permanently take over parts of the West Bank right now. Of course, the settlers in general would like Israel to own the entire West Bank forever. What do you do about more than 2 million Palestinians who live there? The settlers seem to hope that the Palestinians will move away, go to Australia, go to Canada, go to Detroit. It's all unrealistic. It seems obvious to me, but they are saying that Israel should take the move now while Trump is still in office, and apparently members of the Trump White House have heard that, and they're a bit insulted because the Trump team is so convinced that Mr. Trump will win in November. And so, again, they're not really on the same wavelength. Even this group in Israel that had great support from Donald Trump, they're not communicating very well right now.
So what are the realistic options for the Palestinians given that situation now?
I was impressed that the two main factions sat down together, had a joint news conference. By that I mean the Fatah faction, which of course is basically the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah in the West Bank, and Hamas, which governs the Gaza Strip. There's been a lot of bloodshed, a lot of disagreement between the two factions. Hamas, frankly, is more militant against Israel and always wanting to fight against the existence of a separate Jewish state, whereas Fatah is committed to living alongside a Jewish state of Israel, but they sat down together saying annexation is a huge danger to Palestinians. So at least for a while, we're seeing some more unity among Palestinian politicians. Also, the man and woman on the street, in a city like Jericho in the West Bank, very close to the Allenby Bridge, where one can travel from the West Bank over to Jordan. Jericho's a big city, and 22,000 Palestinian Arabs live there, and they're concerned that if the Israelis go ahead with their plan and annex the whole Jordan Valley near the Jordan River that's nearby, but exclude the city of Jericho, then the Palestinians in that city, which has been basically self-governed, will be cut off, will be isolated, will have more roadblocks to go through, won't be able to visit their uncles, their aunts, the hospitals they need to get to. And so there's real concern that if the Israelis do take these steps, life will become more difficult for Palestinians. By the way, there are some Israelis who do want to have peace talks, and they say, well, maybe if there's annexation, that will put more pressure on Palestinians to come to a bargaining table. Of course, the Palestinians say that's where the Israelis would try to dictate a humiliating solution. So again, I don't see the parties all understanding each other. I don't see anything good coming of it. And maybe we're better off with the current situation instead of annexation, shaking things up and perhaps triggering some violence.
How serious is the warning from countries like Jordan, Egypt, the UAE, and even Europe against such move?
Yeah, well, let's take them one at a time. The United Arab Emirates and other Gulf states have some secret relationships with Israel, some cooperation. They're mostly concerned about their common enemy, Iran. And so generally the UAE, for instance, is cordial with Israel, but the UAE ambassador to America wrote an article that appeared in Hebrew in a leading Israeli newspaper recently warning the Israelis not to proceed with annexation. It could be dangerous, and the Gulf Arab states would stop cooperating with Israel, he wrote. And then we got a report that they are cooperating against the COVID-19 coronavirus right now. So that raised some questions. Maybe the Gulf states still do cooperate with Israel, and I suspect they do. Europe is indeed trying to put pressure on Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu not to proceed with annexation, not to shake up the situation in a way that would be humiliating to the Palestinians. And so Europe, a lot of the countries there are thinking about boycotting, if not Israeli goods, then Israeli settlement goods, things made in the West Bank. So that's something the Israelis are listening to. Now, as for Jordan and Egypt, those are the two Arab states that have peace treaties with Israel. Jordan, again, is making threats that the peace treaty cannot survive under this pressure. Jordan feels a link, of course, with the West Bank, which used to be governed by Jordan until 1967. And King Abdullah might be serious in cutting off connections with Israel, but probably not. I would say that King Abdullah needs Israel's security assistance to stay in power, even needs the trade. As for Egypt, I would have to say that Egypt's President Sisi doesn't seem to care much about the Palestinians in the West Bank, and the Israelis are not worried about President Sisi turning against Israel.
Now, I have read about an option called micro-annexation. Can you explain to us what that is?
Yes, and that's something that could happen even in the coming days. Again, I don't think Netanyahu will defy the Trump White House and do it, but micro-annexation means just large settlement areas where Jews live pretty close to Jerusalem, where Israel has de facto taken over the land after that Six-Day War. Israel did officially annex East Jerusalem. That part of the city used to be held by Jordan. So all of Jerusalem is united, and then Israel pushed the border further, and then Israel also settled areas that are just to the east and south and a little bit to the north of Jerusalem. And so micro-annexation would mean that Israel annexes only those areas where they say, only Jews live there anyway. We're not annexing any Palestinian villages, they would say. Obviously, this would still involve roads, more roadblocks. Palestinians would feel insulted, and it might even hurt their local economy. But because of Israeli politics, Prime Minister Netanyahu may feel that he has to do that for his right-wing ministers. After all, they stood with him in the last election campaign. And so Netanyahu considers it an election promise, a campaign promise. Benny Gantz, who is part of the government as the defense minister, Gantz and his partners in the government, they think even micro-annexation wouldn't be good because politically within Israel, it would be a victory for the right-wing settlers, and Gantz doesn't want to do them any favors.
Now, I have 1 minute left or less, and the question is very critical. Can Israel survive the one-state solution?
If one state means that Arabs and Jews would live together in one country that the British had until 1948, then most Israelis, I would say most, I know so many, I used to be based there for CBS, I've written books about Israel and its policies, most Israelis feel no, that the Jewish people are a people, they're not just a religion, they deserve their own country. But most Israelis in opinion polls also feel that the Palestinian Arabs deserve their own country. So the two-state solution still seems to be the fair one, the one that Europe favors, the one that the Oslo Accords suggested in 1993. I hope we can move back to that. One state, by any definition, is going to leave some people angry, and violence, I'm afraid, would burst out.
Mr. Dan Raviv, thank you very much for the information, and happy 4th of July. See you again here the first Friday of August. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.